Hello and welcome back to another episode of our Credible Business Series. Today we're here with Scott with Zeal Property Management. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hi.
I was looking up Zeal Property Management. We were working with you for Virtually Incredible, so I know a little bit about it, but I'm not really sure like how long it's been in business and when you started and all of that. So can you give us a little picture of why you started the company, when you started it, like what was the motivation for starting?
Hi, my name's Scott, out in Colorado, owner of Zeal Property Management. I started Zeal, in 2018, but before that, I was an employee of a property management company. So I graduated right out of Iowa State with a finance degree, and I knew I wanted to do real estate somewhere, somehow. My older brother does real estate development and investment on a different level, but he got me interested in it back when I was in high school. I saw him in college doing little college student rentals in Fargo, North Dakota, and I knew right away that I wanted to be independent like he was. So I went to Iowa State for finance. I did some leasing with a management company up there as a leasing agent when I was going to classes. And then right out of school, I got a job in Boulder, Colorado, up on the hill with a large PM company as a property manager, making 40 grand a year in a very expensive town. And I was stoked. I was excited. Very green in the industry, didn't know much about it. And the student market is challenging. So I jumped into that. I learned what I needed to learn. It was challenging, lots of long days. We would turn, hundreds of units in a 2-week time frame. We would work, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 2 weeks straight, turning student rentals up on the hill in August, right before school starts.
Wow.
And they'd bring us lunch and we'd work long hours, and then the rest of the season is a little bit slower. But, I'm trying to remember, we had probably 800, almost 1,000 units that the company had under management, and a majority of them turned in August.
Holy moly.
So it was a big operation, lots of vendors, lots of coordination. And so I learned at a high level kind of how to operate at that stress level, which I think is really beneficial now. But I've always wanted more, and I've never had that employee mindset. I've always had I did college pro in college and did painting and did that whole deal. I was always entrepreneurial. So I moved on. I graduated trying to do some residential property management at their other office, still in Boulder, and I got my license. I started doing real estate sales. I started doing pretty well with that. So I graduated from property management. I quit doing the property management, and I told myself I'd never do it again. At times I think as a property manager, like as an employee, I think maybe if you're in the wrong mindset, it can suck. It definitely can drag you down, especially when you don't know how to really let go of things. Like I took a lot of things personally, which I think is a good thing and bad thing because I cared. So I quit PM. I started doing real estate sales. I thought I wanted to manage real estate agents. That was a quick decision not to. So I just did sales on my own for a few years. And then, come 2018, I was walking my dog and we were pregnant with twins and living paycheck to paycheck. And, and I heard it click in my head. It was like, do property management again. I was like, I don't want to do that. But I listened. I walked back home. I told my wife and I was like, I think I'm going to jump back into property management. And she just looked at me. She's like, what? Why? And so I jumped into it. And sure enough, like the next week, one of my real estate buddies from Fort Collins called down and like, hey, are you doing property management yet? And it was the weirdest coincidence because I hadn't told anybody. I hadn't started setting anything up. Nothing was happening. But he was the push that I needed where I just was like, you know what? Yeah. And so little townhome in Thornton, Colorado was my first property, and I was losing money. I spent, a lot of money. I put contracts and licensing and all on my credit card and pulled the trigger. That was 2018. And, several years later, we've grown to, almost 530 doors. And now we're half that size through a big transition a couple months ago with a large client. So now we're at like a nice lean 250, 260 doors. I purposely jumped into it. And I think the big reason why I said yes, my wife and I had some experiences while we were trying to rent and move around apartments in that year of 2017, 2018. It was a difficult experience. A couple of the larger PM companies, scheduling showings, they were doing like the virtual showings. So like they wanted me to put my credit card info in and charge me $1. I wanted to meet someone physically at the unit. I didn't want to go look at it myself alone. I grew up in a customer service mindset. and family and food service, and it just annoyed me. Like, here, do it yourself. And then we had another experience where it was I guess it was a lease break, and I showed up at the property and no one showed. I called the management company. It's a big management company. They're over 1,000 units. I called them. I was like, hey, I'm here. Is your showing agent here? Or, are they running late? And they're like, oh, well, actually the tenant was supposed to show you. I'm like, okay. I guess it's a lease break. And they were like, oh yeah, it's a lease break. So the tenant's actually supposed to be doing all of that. I'm like, that's not how this works. That kind of played into a part. It was like, you know what? There's a need for a management company in Denver to treat people, and not just owners, but tenants, not like numbers, not like cattle. Treat them like they're real people. Just because they don't own a home doesn't mean that they're not worth providing a level of service to. And that's where it started.
Wow. First off, I love when I'm talking to another manager that values tenants, because people talk about owners all the time and how you can serve the owners and make sure that you're doing a good job for the owners and that your customer service is up there for the owners. But being a tenant is such a vulnerable thing where if you are renting from the wrong person, you can really get taken advantage of, even if there's laws in place to protect you. If you're having to do anything to show that the laws aren't being followed, it's a nightmare. Like if you're having to file a lawsuit or any of that. And I know I've had friends where they've called me and said, can my landlord do this? They just walked into my house without notice. No, they can, you know what I mean? No, they can't.
I even had friends too. And even people on where I've been connected with friends of mine was like, hey, I've got a friend that they're having difficulty with their landlord. Like, can you give them some tips? I'm like, absolutely. Because they deserve to be heard. Unfortunately, I think in Colorado, I think the tenants have been listened to a little bit too much with some of the laws that have come down in the past 5 years. It's very different. There's a reason why they're passing that stuff. I just wish that they'd include the good property managers and the good owners and brokers in that conversation to actually create some good laws. That all stems from bad landlords taking advantage of tenants.
You're right. It's because of people that are not following the laws currently in place and respecting tenants and taking care of them. I was talking to somebody else yesterday about how being a property manager in our area, and I think in a lot of areas, when you meet somebody, they almost like a lot of times will innately hate you because of like past experiences that they've had that are crappy. And it's so refreshing to speak to somebody that wants to reset the stage with that, because it's just like, that's why the industry can suck. Like when you started talking and you said you take stuff personally, and some days it would really suck. I think even when you do have it together, and even when you have been doing it for a long time, it can still suck. Like you're just a big old problem solver. You rarely pick up the phone and don't hear a problem that's all of a sudden your problem. So basically
all we do is we manage conflict. And I love the feeling that like Monday was a good example. Like I came in along with the rest of my team probably. It was like, okay, I'm motivated. I'm going to get some stuff done. Left and right of tenant complaints, issues getting yelled at, and problems that arose. And you look back at it and it's like, okay, a lot of that conflict could have been handled by better communication on Friday, right? And so it's funny how you just come into it. You have a great intent to have a great week, and then you just get blasted with everything. So it's easy to lose focus on why we do it.
You're the face for problems that can't even be prevented. So it's like, you just have to kind of get used to being the face for a bunch of problems that are sometimes completely out of your control. And sometimes and I think a good property manager goes, how can we make sure this doesn't happen next time? And that's how you get better. But that's the weird thing about the industry, property management, is there's some things that there's actually no answer for. It's just like, you have to be there when the phone call comes in that the problem happened, and there's nothing you can do to prevent it. And that's, if there weren't problems, we wouldn't have jobs as property managers. So
I agree.
Was part of the reason that you went from sales to property management just like the consistency of like more of the subscription income rather than like the one-time cash out and then starting over again? Like I know for me, sales are fun and I do them on the side, but I like the sustainability of actual people are going to pay the management fees monthly. You do your job every day and you can count on the paycheck. Whereas with real estate, some months are great and some months you wonder if you're going to be able to feed your family. So
I've done a lot of sales. I didn't quite realize it until I jumped into doing property management. I didn't quite realize that property management, it pumps out a lot of cash. Like property management companies, if ran well, can provide a good life for you. If ran efficiently and expectations are set. I think for me, it didn't really click until when I started doing it. I was like, wow, this is great. I feel way more at peace at home. Real estate, it's great. I still do it. But yes, that big check at the closing table is awesome. And then you might not see another one, or maybe you get 6 in 1 month or 10 in 1 month. It's very inconsistent for me. And I think, my personality, I figured out that my personality is I can't do that. Your other real estate colleagues are getting deals, or maybe your client chose to use someone else, and then you really need the money. And so, you're not really representing your clients in that way as a fiduciary that you need to be, because you need to feed your family. And so I just didn't like that inconsistency and that pressure. I think a lot of realtors that are successful, they can handle it. For me, yeah. I love systems. I love scaling. I love building things that are consistent and very routine based. That's my personality. And as I got into property management as an owner, I realized wow, I really enjoy that. Not necessarily managing the property, but I love the operations. I love the software. I love accounting. I love setting up systems, and I love how everything flows. And I love that I don't have to do open houses on Saturday. I love the business of property management. It's so much fun.
It is. It's so funny. You can on one hand talk about how hard it is, and then you switch over to a really sustainable, cyclical career. And if you like systems and processes, I could see why you love it, being in it for the time that I have. So when did you feel like you started to hit your stride? You started in 2018. You started with one townhouse. When did you start actually turning a profit? When did you start feeling like the phone was ringing and you were able to build the portfolio?
So I'd done a lot of real estate sales already prior to starting Zeal Property Management. And so I had a lot of connections in the real estate world already. And so it honestly took off, and I was doing well that first year. I didn't do a lot of advertising. I was all word of mouth. I just reached out to my realtor friends and let them know that I'm doing property management now. And I was fortunate enough to get connected with a few clients that were investors, and it was 2018. It was a great time where a lot of people were investing and growing, and the legislation wasn't as intense in 2018 in Colorado. And so a lot of people were adding properties, being able to keep properties and trade into new properties, and didn't want to sell what they had. So they handed them over. So I grew a lot just in that first year or two, just from referrals. So honestly, I took on that townhome and I grew pretty quick to where I probably maybe at the end of the first year, I had 30 to 50 doors. And I started to think about, okay, I need to get out of my house. I got twins, get a little one person office. It was just me. And then as I grew greater than 50 doors, I think in that first year, I brought on a part-time leasing agent. It kind of grew naturally just through networking and really referrals. I think I probably attribute that to providing that level of attention and customer service and detail to our clients, and making sure that we were doing things the right way, treating people well, to where they would just talk about me. They'd be like, oh yeah, call Scott. So I think that my customer service background with my family, I think definitely played into being attentive to our owners, and our owners have shared that love with other owners.
I think communication above all is honestly, when it comes to property management, the most important. The majority of the calls that I get from owners that are trying to vet a property manager and they're nervous will say, I had a property management company that no one would answer the phone, or, having your biggest asset managed by someone that won't speak to you or is hard to get a hold of is kind of a nightmare.
And it bugs me. It bugs me when tenants tell us I can't get a hold of you guys. I'm like, why not? What's the root problem? Why are we not talking to our tenants? And sometimes because the tenant's difficult to deal with. And sometimes our team avoids calling people. It's just the day and age. So, we want to talk to people. Talking to people gets people's guards down. It gets them relaxed, and it helps just reset. Sometimes we get new tenants, going back to the conversation where tenants are already apprehensive about renting with a new management. Oh, great, another big management company. Then you get them on the phone and be like, hey, John, how are you? And he's like, fine. There's a problem. Their door is already up. And, our first response is I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. So resetting tenants' expectations who've had a prior bad experience is what we really like doing. I think that we do a good job on that. Thankfully, I've got a great team that is good at that, because you have to get onto the tenant's level and try to understand, why are they frustrated? It might not be because of us. It just might be because they already believe that we're not going to do anything about it.
Sometimes it's if you can just answer the phone and listen, they just want to talk to somebody, and you're the face for the problem, property manager. And I feel like people don't realize that when you hire a property management company that does that for tenants and that cares to listen and does speak to tenants and treats tenants with that respect and that consideration, you're doing a lot for the owner as well, because that's a huge part of property management. If you are great with owners and you suck with tenants, you're doing the owner a huge disservice. I promise you the vacancy time is longer. I promise you it's costing the owner money and some time.
If you don't have a good reputation with tenants and you're not nice to your tenants, you won't have owners.
No,
period.
no.
Because
Yep.
you're right, the expenses will go up, the turnover costs go up. You're charging your owners more leasing fees every year. If they're not making money, why would they keep the property? So it's
Even down to
directly correlated. Yeah.
mutual respect and rapport goes a really long way when something's going on. Like how quickly they're going to report something. Do they even bother reporting it? Because if no one's going to answer the phone, why bother? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's the mindset of like, okay, are you going to be that property manager, broker owner that goes, hey, Mr. Tenant, how can I help you? And understanding their situation and trying to disarm and acknowledge maybe we screwed up. Maybe you acknowledge that. Let's fix it. Let's address it. You could take that approach, or you could be the approach of like, you could be that property manager owner that says, well, John, per the lease, and just toss the book at them. Because yeah, you could do that. And more than likely, you probably are right. They are locked into a lease and they're breaking the lease because they lost their job and like they can't pay rent. Per the lease, you got to pay your lease break fee. And you do, I was like, that's just not the way to go about it. It's just not human. You could still say per the lease, but you could say it and operate in a way that's empathetic and understanding in their situation. Like imagine putting yourself in your shoes that you just, got a divorce or you lost your job and you can't pay rent. Like, let's figure this out. You still got to pay fees, but like, okay, you can set expectations, but you at least can just be like, I'm really sorry that happened.
Yeah. The human aspect of it, we've lost so often because we have keyboards to hide behind. And like back in the day, if you were not answering the phone, you were not talking to people.
Yeah.
But now, like, email me. Well, no, like sometimes it does require picking up the phone and being a human being and having empathy and still holding them accountable. And that's what I think the best property managers figure out the balance of, is how to have empathy and hold people accountable at the same time. But I think that that's an important thing. I always like to touch on that because the focus is always owners, owners, owners. And I think it's a huge service to owners to treat tenants well, too.
We're in a human business. Like it'll never be like AI is huge right now. I get it. It's powerful. I'm very apprehensive to, the AI agents who have conversations with tenants and talking to computers. Like I think it's cool. I love technology, but being able to have a human to human interaction is so important for us. I think if you can understand and come down to someone's level, you will run a successful property management business and you'll go home less stressed. Not all the time, but we exist to solve problems. And if our tenants look at us as a resource versus, they're always at odds against us, that's not helpful. If we can get our tenants to call us because they need help, then you're running a good business.
100%. Why do you think when an owner is calling you and trying to decide what management company to list with, they go with you? What's the most common thing that you hear or feel that they pick you over?
What sets me apart? I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, I honestly don't know, because I've had a very challenging first quarter of 2026. I lost 280 doors.
I caught you at a bad time.
I think what sets me apart is what we're talking about. We created Zeal to be a no BS, no fluff, like very transparent property management company who owns up to their mistakes when they make them, because we will make them. If you have a property management company who says they have it down, they have all the systems, they have it perfected, and they got it, they're wrong and ignorant. You will make mistakes left and right. And the ability to acknowledge your mistakes to your owner and own up to it, and sometimes you're writing checks, then you will keep clients longer. Clients stay with us because I think that we have that genuine relationship where like, this is a partnership. Like, I don't work for you, Mr. Owner. This is a partnership. Property management is very gray. Like you can go left or right, up or down, and it's challenging. And they hire us to be honest with them and be that professional and tell them like it is. And don't try to hide something that you screwed up. Just tell them what happened and move on. We try to avoid that, obviously. That's not a fun conversation to have, but I've had that conversation. And they've told me, because you are so honest and you owned up to it, I'm keeping you as a client. I was looking for a new management company until this phone call. I think that's what makes me different. And I think on the tenant side too, is like it doesn't always go this way, but we really try to listen and understand tenants' issues. And I think if you have a good relationship with a tenant, they stay longer, your renewal rate's higher, your costs are lower, and your team is less stressed. Because if you can renew a lot of your portfolio every year, you're less leasing, you're less turnover, and
better for everyone.
And then everybody has more time to grow and change and think of new ideas and improve our systems. So it's a very human business, and we try to lean into that and not be that company that has our team be like, well, per section 3.3 of the lease, like you have to do this. Like, we don't operate like that.
Yeah,
We try to get things done with a softer approach. So
starting emails with per anything, which I definitely went through my per stage when
I did too. You learn
Yeah.
and you grow. I think when I was green, I was definitely that property manager versus once you become more comfortable and like how to handle conflict. I think conflict resolution, you either lean into that or you're just not good at it at all.
No.
Like if you try to understand people and you learn how to communicate, it makes things go a lot smoother.
It's wisdom and humanity. I think it's funny actually, because there was a time when I started in our property management company, I was running it alone and I had no experience, very green. While in the background, everything was falling apart because I had no idea what I was doing. My customer service was really good. I'm a really good communicator. So I was answering every single call. Nobody was like, what's going on with my property? Even if I didn't know, I'd tell them, hey, I'm here. I got to figure it out and call you back kind of a thing. Then we hired someone that was really good at the back end. They were good at maintenance. They were good at all the things I wasn't, but they weren't good at keeping people updated. And our reviews started coming. So we were actually doing better, but we weren't communicating that we were doing better. And we started seeing the negative reviews coming in. I think customer service and empathy and being a human and not being a robot is probably one of the most important things, even if you don't have the rest figured out. When somebody calls you, what's the most common couple of problems that you solve for owners? Like if someone's calling you, what are they usually wanting you to fix? Why do they need a property manager and how do you fix their problems?
There's usually a pain point that's associated with that. It's either a specific pain point or they're simply just, they're adding another property to their portfolio, or, they're transitioning their personal home into a different home and they want to rent out their current home. So there's three scenarios, but the ones, that always kind of stand out are the ones that, are transitioning from another management company. And there's some pain points. And usually a lot of those pain points arise from communication issues, accounting issues, or just like the operational side of things. But all of that plays into communicating with the owner. Owners want consistency. They want to be communicated when there's a big issue. Otherwise, leave them alone. And, if you have a trust with owners, they don't bother you and they get their owner statements on time. There's no surprises. Your accounting is top notch. You're giving them their money on time or providing some additional services or ideas if they do have complaints. Setting those expectations with new owners is a big one. I started off, I think, knowing that right off the bat, that if you don't know how to say no to an owner, you will get into a cycle suck. I think I learned that from DoorGrow, Jason. Way back in the day, I signed up with them. That's who built my website. And I owe a lot of credit to Jason and DoorGrow. But, I think he's the one who mentioned the cycle of suck. If you get owners who don't listen, run you around ragged, you don't know how to say no to them, you're going to be in this cycle that burns you out. It's not going to be fun. I learned early on from my experience and coaching with them and starting off my company, I didn't want that. So I learned how to fit owners and tell them how things are going to go. And here's why. And get them all in the same box, the same lease, the same system to where I can grow this thing all on the same level. That made things scale easily for me.
If you're wanting to be able to provide customer service the way that you want to provide it to your tenants and owners, I think it's important that you have to be able to stand your ground and your boundaries when you're signing on owners, because otherwise all your time goes to the ones that want the customized lease, the customized management agreement, want you to go and put a Band-Aid on this repair instead of actually replacing it. And those owners take up so much time, but they're paying you the same amount and they're taking away your focus on the ones that are willing to fork up the money.
Historically, I have a pretty low churn. And, I think that probably plays into me. I've said no a lot to owners. And I usually churn out the owners that are very, everything goes great on the onboarding call and everything's fine. And then there's something that happens, a repair or something, and immediately they want control. I say, no, this is how we usually run things. No, I will not let you go into the home yourself and fix the furnace. You're not licensed. It's different now. And that no saves me a lot of headaches, to be honest. Yes, I turn out an owner or they don't call me back after a discovery call, but I'm pretty clear in my expectations on how they're supposed to act. And it saves me a lot of headache. I grow slower. They usually go to someone else and that's okay. But that means that I'm more intentional about the owners I'm bringing on. And those owners are the ones that are staying me for 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 years.
Adding doors is not always equal adding money. When you're adding the wrong doors, that's the weird thing too about property management, is that when you get into a crappy situation, you can be named in the suit and you can get pulled into court and you can end up going into your pocket to pay for whatever happened. So I totally agree with that. How do you feel like you build trust with your owners in order to make them comfortable signing on with your company?
I have a discovery call with them initially. The referrals are easy.
Yeah.
They've already got trust immediately. Those are the most fun because they're being referred from an existing client and they're like, I'm ready to go. So and so
Yeah.
told me about everything that's gone well. Like, you don't need to do your spiel. Like, how do we transition this? So those are the most fun. The ones that come from cold finding me on the website, I don't know. I have the same spiel that I give everybody, and that's literally what we've talked about. It's a very human business. I'm a very straight shooter. I don't beat around the bush. I have a no BS approach. I really try doing things the right way. And if I don't know how to do it the right way, I try to figure it out to do it the right way. And it might take me a long time to do it the right way. Just through education, because sometimes you can't find the resources that you need to, whether it's loan amortization, like I just went through that with Affilio. Like they have a loan tab to where you can put in the client's loan and it'll amortize and it'll spit out everything automatically for you. And obviously the correct way for GAAP is the principal of the loan needs to go here and then the interest needs to go on the income statement and principal goes on the balance sheet. And so a lot of people don't do it that way. But my owner asked a question. I was like, yeah, that should be done the right way. I think when I'm talking to owners, I tell them that we look for owners that want to take a hands-off approach. We're full service. My goal is to take this property as your fiduciary and run it and watch out for your bottom line, look at costs, be proactive. Don't ignore the things that we need to not ignore and advise you on the things that you need to take action on. And as long as I'm telling you the truth and you decide to go this way and keep the fridge instead of replace it, as long as I'm doing that, or if I'm telling you you're wrong, you should do this instead, or we should look at this replacement, then at least I'm doing my job. Like, I get it. They may not have the money for a $15,000 furnace. That's understandable. In the long run, it's probably better to do that. At least I'm advising you. At least I'm being honest and we're making a decision together. So I think a big thing with trust is just being honest with your owners and telling them that, like, if you hire me, things won't go perfect. My goal is to take it from you. My goal is to make sure that we run this property professionally. And with any changes or any legal changes, that we're not cutting corners and you're sleeping better at night and you're able to focus on the things that you're passionate about. And so that's what I tell them.
Yeah.
I also tell them that there will be conflict. We will screw up. And this is a partnership and we'll work through it together. That's how the relationships last. I'm just honest with them, I guess. I'm not a very salesy guy. I hate the hard sale. Don't send me emails 2 times every day to sign up. Like, if you want to work with people, you'll work with people. You could touch them here and there or follow up after a call is fine. I usually just I end the call. It's like, well, let's just follow up in a week, or depending on their time frame, right? Like, usually the next step is I send management agreements electronically. We get them, and then we start the onboarding process, and then they get handed off to our director of leasing if we got to lease the property, and we do onboarding, property information fill outs, and we get the property going. I'm usually not walking the property until they're a client, but I'm okay if a client wants to meet me first. That's understandable. So I make exceptions to that. Yeah, you want to meet me? No problem.
Everyone's being advertised to constantly, and the salesy approach just does not work anymore. I think when someone feels like they're just speaking to, again, a human that is giving them real answers to their real questions and not schmoozing them, I think it goes a very long way in a world where you just don't know what you can trust and everyone can advertise themselves online and spam people with their emails and,
Like, provide some value. If you have a client that they're not working with you and they have some questions, like, look, just help them out. There's people that call me and, like, I already kind of tell based on the answers that they're giving me that we're not a fit, but I still spend time on the phone call to, like, tell them and advise them on the situation they've got, how they should handle it. Because who knows, maybe in a year or 2 or 3 years, they will refer someone or they'll come back to you and sign up their portfolio of 15 doors. So I always try to go into it with a new owner that, especially referrals, even if they don't hire me right away, you plant the seed. Down the road, it'll grow at some point based on your interaction. Like, oh, I remember, Scott or Megan, like, she was so nice and she helped me solve this problem.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. If someone is looking for a property manager, what do you think they need to be looking out for as far as green and red flags?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I think every owner has a different perspective of how they want to be treated. Like, property management companies, I think questions should be asked on, whether who's handling the accounting. Are you talking to the actual broker? I think it's important that you sign up your property with a company who is doing things compliantly with the state and knows how to do it properly. I speak to commingling of funds. Like, make sure you hire a company who's going to be handling your money for you, that they know how to handle it. and keep proper trust accounting. I think those questions should be asked. I think you should look at Google reviews. I'm very passionate about my Google reviews, and people look at those. They look at how you respond. That's helpful. But honestly, just asking questions on who your point of contact is, asking questions like if there's something that's important to you, I think you need to align right away. If you have certain desires and needs of your property manager or even the other way around, make those expectations known and set them up front, and you'll have a smooth transaction, or you'll move on. I ask specific questions to my owners. Like, I'm very specific about owners who want to handle some of their maintenance on their own. I'm just like, no, not happening. Yeah. I think expectation setting is really important. If you can get dialed in on your ideal client profile and knowing who you want to hire, and even for owners, if owners know exactly kind of how they want the relationship to go, do you want some involvement or do you want to be hands off? Most management companies want you to be hands off. And if you don't, if you want to be involved, go find a new management company who will say yes to everything. For the most part, you're hiring a management company to take care of everything for you.
Yes, 100%. If somebody was looking to work with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you? Phone or website or all that information so they can find you.
Zeal Property Management, we're in Colorado. We manage all across the entire Front Range. We're based in Lafayette up in Boulder County, but we have properties down in Denver. And that's how you find me. I mean, you can share my email as well too, but we're easily findable.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really fun conversation, and I really appreciate you taking out almost a whole hour to talk with me. It's always really fun to talk to another property manager.
Likewise, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Take care. Nice talking to you.